The alarm panel was dead. The hallway lights were out, and the smoke rolling along the ceiling was already turning black. Mark Rivera could taste the plastic burning in the back of his throat as he kicked open the service door and stumbled into the darkened wing of the mall. "Anybody in here?" His voice bounced off metal gates and shuttered storefronts. No answer, just the low roar of fire chewing through wiring above the ceiling tiles. Then he heard it. A cough. A small, ragged cough from somewhere inside the arcade. He vaulted the half-closed gate, landed hard, and dropped to his knees. The air was hotter here. Thick, poisonous. His hand brushed an arm, then a tiny backpack with cartoon rockets on it. A boy, maybe 10, lay on the floor, eyes half-closed, lips starting to turn blue. The emergency exits were jammed. He'd argued about those rusted hinges in every safety report, and the suits had smiled and said they'd review the budget. Now the kid was paying for it. Mark ripped off his own hoodie, wrapped it around the boy's mouth and nose, and hoisted him over his shoulder in one practiced motion his body never forgot. Sirens wailed faintly outside. Sprinklers still hadn't kicked in. If he waited for anyone else, that kid was done. So the 37-year-old maintenance guy that nobody noticed took a breath of burning air, lowered his head, and ran straight back into the smoke with somebody else's child in his arms. Before I go any further, tell me where you're listening from tonight and hit that like and subscribe button if you believe courage still matters in this world. Now let me take you back to how a man like Mark ended up there in the dark, doing a job that was never in his contract. By day, well by night, Mark Rivera was the guy you only saw out of the corner of your eye. Green Line Commons Mall just outside Dayton, Ohio, shut down at 9 p.m. That's when Mark clocked in. He fixed jammed doors, replaced flickering bulbs, unclogged drains, and listened to the building breathe. While most folks were home watching the late news, Mark was tightening bolts and testing backup generators. He was 37, widowed, and raising a 9-year-old boy named Tyler in a 2-bedroom rental on the edge of town. Tyler had asthma and a habit of falling asleep with history books open on his chest. Most mornings, Mark got 3 hours of sleep before packing lunches, dropping his son at school, and grabbing a cheap coffee on the way back home to crash. Long before he was tightening bolts in an Ohio mall, Mark had worn a different uniform. He'd been an Army combat medic in places nobody vacations, patching up strangers under red tracer fire and desert stars. He'd learned how to move fast, think faster, and carry more pain than he ever talked about. Then came the crash on I-75 in a rainstorm. A drunk driver, a twisted minivan, and a hospital room where a doctor apologized without once saying the word widower. After that, Mark stopped talking about heroics. He took the night job because it paid steady, came with health insurance for Tyler, and didn't require him to explain why the sound of a siren could still make his hands shake. But the part of him that knew how to help never really turned off. On his lunch breaks, he'd wander out to the far end of the parking lot, where old RVs and beat-up sedans gathered overnight to people living in their cars, truckers, short on cash, families between apartments. Quietly, without telling anyone at the mall, he started checking on them. A blood pressure cuff here, an inhaler he bought out of pocket there, a hot grilled cheese sandwich off the side of a food truck he was rebuilding in his driveway. He never called it anything. It was just what you did when you knew how to keep somebody breathing. From the office windows above, though, the new mall owner, Claire Houghton, saw something very different. A maintenance tech lingering around parked cars, hauling coolers and boxes out to the edge of the lot, and inventory numbers that didn't quite line up with what the spreadsheet said they should be. And on one quiet Tuesday night, Claire decided she was done watching from behind glass. She tossed her blazer over her chair, grabbed her keys, and followed Mark out into the dark to find out exactly what he was doing. Claire followed at a distance, her heels clicking once on the concrete before she thought better of it and swapped them for the sneakers she kept under her desk. The security cameras saw everything, she reminded herself. But there was something about seeing it with her own eyes that mattered more than any grainy feed. From the glass office above, Mark had been a small shape crossing the massive half-empty parking lot, pushing one of the old metal carts he used for hauling tools. From the ground he looked different, broader, more deliberate. He moved like a man who already knew where he was needed. At the far edge of the lot, where the sodium lights went dim and weeds pushed up through cracked asphalt, the cars turned into a village. An old Winnebago with duct tape crisscrossing its windows. A rusted pickup with a tarp stretched over the bed. A minivan with its back seats removed and a curtain hung where the hatch wouldn't fully close. Little islands of survival clustered along the chain-link fence. Mark slowed. He parked the cart beside the Winnebago and popped open the lid of a cooler. Steam rose in white curls. Not coffee soup, maybe. He handed a styrofoam cup to a man in a flannel shirt, then moved on to a woman in a faded college hoodie sitting on a milk crate, her ankle wrapped in an ace bandage. Claire stopped behind a row of shopping carts, heart thudding. It was one thing to suspect. It was another to catch your employee running what looked to her like an unauthorized clinic on company property. She watched him pull a blood pressure cuff from his bag, wrap it around the woman's arm with practiced ease, and pump. He spoke low, his words carried away by the wind. The woman nodded, eyes damp, clutching the cup in both hands. Another figure emerged from the minivan, a teenager with choppy hair and a hollow look, and Mark reached into the cart again this time for an inhaler still sealed in its pharmacy bag. The inventory report flashed in Claire's mind. Medical supplies logged to the mall's emergency kits. Bottled water the food court manager swore he hadn't ordered. Snack bars she'd seen on invoices she didn't remember approving. Her jaw tightened. "Mr. Rivera," she called. Heads turned. Mark's shoulders stiffened before he pivoted slowly toward her. In the half-light, he looked older than 37. "Ms. Houghton," he said. No surprise, no guilt in his voice, just that even tone that had annoyed her in meetings when he questioned safety shortcuts. "What are you doing out here?" she asked. He glanced at the people behind him. Someone shook with a deep, rattling cough. The teenager retreated half a step, eyes on the asphalt. Helping Mark said simply. She took in the cuff, the cooler, the inhaler still in his hand. The metal cart between them toothed and rattled in the wind like some kind of flimsy barricade. "With mall property," she replied. "On mall grounds. Without authorization. It's after hours," he said. "They've got nowhere else to go. The clinics or full shelters are turning people away." You're exposing this company to a lawsuit the size of this parking lot," she cut in her voice harder than she intended. "If you misdose someone, if one of them gets hurt or claims you did something wrong, we're liable. I am liable." Mark's face didn't change much, just a small tightening at the edges of his mouth. "I'm not charging anybody," he said. "I'm using my lunch break, and most of this he tapped the cooler didn't come from the mall. But some of it did," she said. He hesitated. That was all she needed. "We'll talk inside," she said, already turning away. "Clock back in. Bring your badge and keys." Behind her, the cough returned harsher this time. Mark's instinct tugged him backward toward the sound. His job, his insurance, his son's inhalers tugged him the other way. He followed Claire. The meeting room on the second floor still smelled faintly of fresh carpet and new paint, the scent of a renovation she'd pushed through over 3 cost-cutting committees. She sat at the head of the table, the city lights framed behind her, and tried to ignore the faint smear of grease on Mark's sleeve as he took the chair closest to the door. "Do you understand why this concerns me?" she began. "I understand you're worried about liability," he said. "I'm worried about liability," she agreed. "And theft. And the optics of one of my employees running some kind of parking lot operation that looks at best unregulated and at worst illegal." His eyes flicked up at that. Not defiant, just wounded. "It's not illegal to feed people," he said quietly. "It is a problem," she said, "to use AED pads, emergency inhalers, bottled water, and first aid supplies purchased for mall emergencies on people who don't even belong on this property. They belong somewhere," he murmured almost to himself. Claire exhaled slowly. She told herself she wasn't the villain here. She'd worked too hard to keep this mall from becoming another dead husk with a boarded-up Sears and a foreclosure sign. There were rules, insurance requirements, city codes. "You've been logging extra hours," she said, sliding a printout across the table, "purchasing requests with your name on them, and staying after your shift ends." "I fix things," he replied. "That's the job." "What you're doing out there," she said, "is not your job. It stops tonight." "Am I clear?" He swallowed once. "Yes, ma'am." "And if it doesn't stop," she added, "I'll have to let you go. I won't risk this place because you want to play hero in the parking lot." The word hung between them. He didn't flinch. His shoulders didn't square in anger. Instead, something in his face closed like someone pulling blinds down over a window. "I'm not trying to be a hero," he said. "I'm trying to keep people breathing." Her chest tightened, not with sympathy, she told herself, but with irritation. The arrogance of thinking he knew better than she did what this property could handle. "You have a son, don't you?" she asked. He nodded once. "Then I assume you'd like to keep your health insurance," she said. That hit home. For a second, the medic, the widower, disappeared, and all she saw was a father doing arithmetic in his head, rent inhalers, school lunches, how long savings would last. "Yes, ma'am," he said again. She dismissed him with a nod that felt like a door locking. 2 days later, the whispers started. The daytime cleaning crew didn't usually interact with Mark, but news traveled faster than a floor buffer. Someone from security had seen him trek across the lot with a cooler. Someone else had watched his late-night meeting with the boss lady through the break room window. By Thursday, the story had grown teeth. "He's running a side hustle," one of the sales managers muttered as Mark walked past. "Probably selling out the back door." "Heard he's treating junkies in the parking lot," another said, not bothering to lower his voice. "My wife doesn't want me on nights if they're gonna let that go on." Mark kept moving toolbox in hand, expression blank. Years in the service had taught him how to walk past things that made his stomach knot. On Friday morning, he stopped by Tyler's school before heading home. It was career week, and the third-grade hallway was plastered with crayon drawings of firefighters, nurses, truck drivers, and one astronaut with a lopsided helmet. Tyler's contribution hung a little crooked near the water fountain. "My Hero," the title read in careful, blocky letters. The picture beneath made Mark's throat tighten. It was him, in his green line polo, standing beside the mall's back doors with a toolbox in one hand and what looked like a giant sandwich in the other. Around him, stick-figure people in front of boxy cars held their arms out. He took a picture with his phone, his fingers trembling just slightly. "Mr. Rivera." He turned. Mrs. Dalton Tyler's teacher stood with a stack of papers pressed against her chest. "Hi," he said. "Sorry, I was just—" "It's a nice drawing," she said. "Tyler's very proud of you." "I'm proud of him," Mark replied. She hesitated, biting her lip. "He mentioned your work at the mall," she said carefully. "How you help people in the parking lot sometimes. I hope everything's okay there." He seemed worried yesterday that you might get in trouble for doing the right thing. His words, not mine. The words landed like a small stone in his chest. He forced a smile he didn't feel. "Kids worry," he said. "I'm fine. He's fine. He really looks up to you," she added. On the drive home, Tyler's drawing burned a hole in his thoughts. At a red light, he imagined it coming down off the wall, replaced with something safer, more generic. My hero, a firefighter. My hero, a doctor. Not my hero, a maintenance guy who went too far. That night back at the mall, the pressure tightened. Claire wasn't alone anymore. She'd brought company. In the security office, the screens flickered as the new regional safety director, a man named Hal Bowers, with a gut that strained his company polo and a habit of calling everyone buddy, replayed footage of Mark walking across the parking lot. "Looks bad," Hal said, shaking his head. "Real bad. Liability nightmare. You can't have Joe Wrench here playing Dr. House in the lot." Mark stood against the wall, arms at his sides, eyes on the screens. Claire sat in the corner, lips pressed thin. "I told him to stop," she said. He agreed. Hal sniffed. "Still need to document it," he said. "Corporate'll be all over us if this leaks. One blurry Facebook post, and boom. We're the mall that turned into a free clinic and then got sued into oblivion." Mark cleared his throat. "I haven't gone out there since we talked," he said. "You can check the cameras." "Oh, I did," Hal said. "You're squeaky clean the last couple nights. Congrats. Doesn't undo what you've been doing for, months, years." He waved a hand. "Look, buddy, I'm sure you're a nice guy. Army, right? It's in your file. You want to keep patching people up, sign on with a hospital. But here you mop floors. You fix lights. That's the job." Mark's jaw flexed. "If someone collapses on the food court floor," he said quietly, "you expect me to step in then?" "That's different," Hal shot back. "They're customers. They're our responsibility. Those people out there, they're trespassing. Whole other ball game." The words came out cold, neat, like a spreadsheet. Claire flinched internally. Mark just nodded once. "So what now?" he asked. Hal leaned back, making the office chair squeak. "Now," he said, "we put you on probation, written warning. Any more community outreach on company time or property and you're gone. No rehire. And just to be safe, we're adding a new policy, no non-employee loitering after close within the perimeter fence. Security will clear them out. That should solve your temptation problem." Claire hadn't heard that last part yet. "Security will clear them out," how she asked. Hal shrugged. Politely at first, he said. "If they won't move, we call the cops. Can't have a tent city out there. Scares off paying customers." Mark's hand curled into a fist so tight, his knuckles went white. He forced it open again. "You chase them off," he said quietly. "They'll go sit under the overpass a mile away. No cameras, no lights, no one checking if they wake up." Hal rolled his eyes. "This isn't a philosophy seminar, buddy," he said. "It's a mall." Claire watched the muscle jump in Mark's cheek the way he swallowed whatever argument wanted to leap out of his throat. "We're done here," Hal said, reaching for a clipboard. "Sign the warning." Mark stepped forward, glanced at the paper. "Probation, unauthorized use of supplies. Violation of property use policy. Final notice." He signed. As he left the office, he caught his reflection in the dark glass of the closed cell phone kiosk. Green polo. Name tag. The same man who a few years and a lifetime ago had stood in a medic's vest stained with dust and blood, waiting for the next helicopter. Downstairs, the mall hummed its mechanical hum. Escalators idled. Vending machines blinked. Somewhere an air conditioner kicked on unnecessarily, fighting a chill that wasn't there. The parking lot felt different that night. Empty. The RVs and sedans had shifted further toward the street, afraid of the new no loitering signs that maintenance had been ordered to install along the fence. Mark had drilled the bolts himself, his stomach turning with each metal bite. He walked his rounds flashlight beam, sliding over stainless steel trash cans and locked glass doors. He tested an exit sign. Dead. He made a note. He checked a stairwell and caught a whiff of cigarette smoke. Teenagers had been there earlier. Another note. At the far end of the back corridor near the loading dock, he paused. A faint, acrid scent curled out from the seam where a maintenance door met its frame. Not smoke, exactly, something electrical, hot plastic and dust. He opened the door. The utility room hummed louder than it should have. One of the breaker panels was warm to the touch, warmer than he liked. A junction box above it had a black smudge feathering out from its edge like someone had held a match there. He pulled his hand back, heart rate picking up. He'd flagged this panel 3 times in reports. Old wiring. Overloaded circuits feeding the new VR arcade they'd stuffed into the old department store space. Each time the answer had been the same: we'll handle it when the next budget clears. Mark stared at the humming metal and saw for a fractured second a different scene, a darkened wing smoke rolling along the ceiling, an alarm panel stubbornly dead. He shut the door carefully, already turning toward the security office. Probation or not, he needed someone with authority to listen this time. Claire, Hal, anyone. Up above in the office with the windows over the lot, Claire's phone buzzed with a new email. Subject line: Regional Compliance Inquiry. Incident reports. Possible employee misconduct. She clicked it open, skimmed the first lines, and felt her stomach drop. Someone at corporate had picked up the whispers. They wanted documentation. They wanted to know why Green Line Commons' head of maintenance had been ordering medical supplies outside normal parameters and spending extended periods off-camera on the property's perimeter. At the bottom of the email sat the line that made her feel suddenly startlingly cold. Pending review. Consider temporary suspension of employee to minimize exposure. A knock sounded at her door. "Come in," she called. Mark stepped in, smelling faintly of dust and electrical ozone. "Ms. Houghton," he said, "we have a problem with the breaker panel by the old arcade. It's running hot. Really hot. I've flagged it before, but it's worse now. I think we're sitting on a serious fire risk." 2 problems, she thought. Heart pounding, one humming quietly in a locked utility room, the other standing right in front of her, wearing a Green Line polo, and the weight of every bad headline she could imagine. She looked from him to the email still glowing on her screen. "Mark," she said slowly, "we need to talk." And for the first time since she'd taken over the mall, she had no idea which crisis to handle first. The words hung between them. "We need to talk," but the urgency in Mark's voice overrode whatever Claire was about to say. Smoke, fire, panic. He could feel their ghosts rising in his chest again. He forced his breath steady. "It's not one of those small blips, Ms. Houghton," he said. "The metal's hot." Warm enough, I pulled my hand back. "If that junction box arcs, we're not talking a tripped breaker. We're talking a fire that eats the whole north wing before anyone knows what's happening." Claire's eyes flicked from him to the email glowing on her screen, then back to him. For the first time since she'd taken over the mall, he saw fear in her expression. Not corporate fear, not PR fear, real fear. "How long do we have?" she asked. "I don't know," he said. "But I wouldn't bet on hours." She stood so fast her chair rolled back. "Let's go." They moved down the hallway, their footsteps echoing as they descended the stairwell. Every light flicker made Mark's pulse kick harder. He knew the signs. The quiet hum of an electrical panel running hotter than its rating wasn't just a warning, it was the last polite knock before an explosion. Before they hit the ground floor, a sharp pop cracked through the building. Then another. A rhythmic, ugly sound, the sound of live wires fighting their restraints. Claire froze on the landing. "That's it," he said. "It's starting." They rushed into the corridor leading to the old arcade. The air smelled faintly scorched, like overheated electronics on the edge of failure. Something inside the walls hissed. "Call 911, Mark said. Claire pulled out her phone. Mark grabbed his radio. "Security, this is Rivera. We've got a possible electrical fire starting near Service Hall C12. Get people out." Static. Then Flynn's voice low steady, the opposite of panic. "On it, Rivera. Evacuating now." "Where are you heading toward the arcade?" Mark said. "I need to cut power before it jumps." "Copy. Just be careful." But careful wasn't an option anymore. Sparks burst from the seam of the utility door. Claire stumbled back. "Mark, I need a fire extinguisher," he said. "There's one by the loading dock," she said. "Too far. Anything closer? No." His mind scanned the blueprints he'd memorized over 3 years without realizing he'd done it. Emergency hose cabinet 30 yards back. "Stay here," he told her. But she followed him anyway, matching his stride with sheer, stubborn adrenaline. He yanked open the hose cabinet, grabbed the extinguisher, and shoved it under his arm as they ran back. Another pop, this one louder. A burst of orange glowed behind the utility door. Claire pressed a hand to her mouth. "Mark, don't open it. If I don't," he said, "we're losing the whole wing." "But the power." "Exactly. I need to kill it from inside the panel. If the fire reaches the cabling above it, we're done." She stared at him, breath shaking. "You're on probation." "If something happens?" He almost laughed. "If something happens, my employment status doesn't matter." He kicked the door with the heel of his boot. The latch bent, another hit. The metal gave way. A thin wave of heat rolled out, pushing at them like breath from an open oven. Inside, flames licked up the wall behind the malfunctioning junction box. The wiring insulation was melting, dripping like black candle wax. The overhead cables crackled spiderwebs of light, skittering across frayed edges. Claire covered her face. Good God. Mark stepped in. He didn't hesitate. Didn't think about probation notices or corporate policy, or how many people had whispered about him playing medic in the lot. He thought about Tyler's drawing taped on the school wall, "My hero," and the way his son had whispered, "Dad helps people," like it was the most natural truth in the world. He thought about the last fire he'd fought, the one he couldn't beat. The smoke, the screaming metal, the finality of it. Not again. He pulled the pin from the extinguisher. "Stay back," he told Claire. "Mark," I said, "stay back." She stayed. He stepped fully inside the utility room, the air turning hotter by the second. The fire was small, but angry, its claws climbing the wall toward the cable run overhead. He aimed the extinguisher low, sweeping in a tight arc. White foam burst out in a jet coating wires and metal. Each second felt like a minute. He swept again. The flames dimmed, sputtered, tried rising again. "Come on," he muttered. He angled higher, smothering the top edge of the junction box, then the feed line above it. The fire recoiled, shrunk, whined through sparks. The extinguisher coughed, empty. The fire went black. He stood still for a full second, chest heaving. The room stank of chemical suppressant and burned plastic, but the flames were out. For now. He turned back toward the doorway. A section of the ceiling grid dropped, hit the ground with a metallic crash. and a burst of sparks shot downward from the overhead cables still arcing. Mark Clare shouted. He ducked instinctively, raising his arm. A chunk of metal hit his shoulder hard, sending pain down his arm. "Go!" he barked at her. "Back up now." She retreated as he grabbed the fire axe mounted beside the cabinet. One good swing would cut the cable line, but one wrong move could kill him. He tested the handle, still solid. "Mark, don't get back!" he yelled again. She went. He raised the axe, inhaled once, and swung. The blade bit deep into the conduit. A crackle surged up the metal, lighting the air for half a second in a wicked blue arc. Mark's hands tingled with the shock, but he held his grip. He swung again, metal clanged. The conduit snapped free of the brackets. Sparks flew once more, then died. Silence. He lowered the axe, sucking in a breath as the only sound remaining was the soft ticking of cooling metal. Claire rushed forward. Are you okay?" He nodded once, flexing his hand. It hurt, but he'd felt worse. "We need to evacuate the building," he said. "Now. The smell alone means something deeper might be cooking in the walls." "I already called 911, she said. "Security's clearing customers. They won't reach this far in time, though. We'll meet them outside." They ran. As they moved through the corridor, the emergency lights flickered again. The evacuation alarms finally kicked in with a shrill, irregular cry, too late, but better than nothing. They burst into the mall's central atrium. Flynn was directing a handful of late-night shoppers toward the front exit. His eyes widened when he saw Mark covered in extinguisher dust and soot. "Rivera, what the no-time Mark said? Electrical fire in C12. It's out for the moment. But we need to get everyone out before the firefighters crack open the walls." "You got it," Flynn said, switching gears instantly. Claire looked around at the gathering crowd, confused, anxious murmuring. She stepped forward, raising her voice. "Everyone please move toward the front entrance. This is a precautionary evacuation. Stay calm and follow security." The group moved unsure, but obedient. Then a voice rose from behind them. "There he is." Mark turned. Hal Bowers barreled toward them, red-faced, clutching a printed packet. "What did you do?" Hal barked. "Corporate just emailed me. They know everything. They want you suspended pending investigation. And now you're what, starting fires?" Mark stared at him, incredulous. "I didn't start anything." "Really?" "Because according to these logs," Claire cut in sharply. "Hal, not now." "Oh, I think now is perfect," Hal snapped. "We've got liability on top of liability, and your boy here just put half the building at risk." "He shouldn't even be on the premises," Claire stepped between them. He stopped the fire. Hal scoffed. "You believe that story?" Flynn stepped forward. "I saw the smoke," he growled. Rivera radioed it in before anything tripped. "If he says he knocked it down, he knocked it down." Hal ignored him, face turning a shade closer to beat. "You," he jabbed a finger at Mark, "are done. You understand me, fired. Effective right now." Mark didn't move. He didn't need to, because right then the fire alarm tripped fully. A loud crack from somewhere deep in the walls echoed across the atrium. The lights flickered again, harder this time. And through the glass doors at the far end, red and white strobe lights flashed as the first fire engine screeched into the lot. Firefighters spilled out with gear already in hand. The captain, a tall woman with gray streaks in her braid, strode up immediately. "Who's in charge?" Hal jumped forward. "I am." "No," Claire said firmly. "He is." She pointed at Mark. The captain looked him up and down, soot-streaked extinguisher powder on his uniform, one sleeve torn where the ceiling grate hit him. "What happened?" she asked. "Electrical fire in a junction box," Mark said. "I smothered the visible flames, but the lines overhead were arcing. I cut the conduit, but the walls might be hot. You'll want to check the whole run." The captain nodded, impressed. Where Mark led her to the service hallway, she followed with 2 firefighters. Hal sputtered. You can't just— He's on probation. He's under investigation. Claire looked at him, a new steel in her eyes. He just saved the North Wing, she said evenly. What did you save? Hal swallowed his protest. Minutes later, firefighters confirmed what Mark already suspected: the insulation behind the drywall had started to crumble. The fire had been seconds from traveling into the ceiling space, where it could have spread unseen for minutes long enough to trap people. Back in the atrium, customers huddled together. Employees exchanged anxious looks. Some were crying, some were filming. But all eyes turned when firefighters returned. The captain walked straight toward Claire. He's right, she said. If he hadn't acted, this would be a 4-alarm blaze right now. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Claire nodded throat tight. Thank you. But the captain wasn't talking to her. She turned to Mark. You ever consider coming back? She asked. We could use hands like yours. Mark gave a small smile. I've got someone at home who needs me more. Fair enough, she said. But for what it's worth, hell of a job. She clapped him on the shoulder and went back to her crew. Silence settled in the atrium for a moment. Then a child's voice broke through, small, familiar. Dad. Mark spun. Tyler stood near the entrance, backpack slung over one shoulder, his friend's mother behind him, looking mortified. I'm so sorry, she said. We saw the trucks on the way home. Tyler begged me to stop. Mark crouched down. It's okay, he said. You shouldn't be here, though. I saw the fire trucks, Tyler whispered. I got scared. Mark wrapped an arm around him. I'm okay, he said softly. I promise. As he stood, Tyler's mother turned to Claire. He talks about his dad all the time, she said awkwardly. Says he helps people everywhere. Mark felt heat prick behind his eyes. Claire looked at him. Really looked. Not as liability, not as probation, not as trouble. As something else. Hal cleared his throat loudly, desperate to reclaim control. Regardless of all this, Rivera is still under review, and— You're done talking, Claire said, calm and cold. You can meet me in my office after the firefighters clear the building. Hal stared, stunned. She faced Mark. You saved this place, she said quietly. Whatever happens next, that matters. But something in her eyes suggested that whatever happens next had just changed. Mark didn't answer. He just held Tyler a little tighter as the sirens faded outside and the mall lights flickered back to life, one by one, like something waking up after being inches from disaster. And while no one said it out loud, not yet everyone who saw what he did understood the truth. The maintenance guy had just become the only real hero in the building. When the fire crews finally cleared the last hotspot and began hauling out their equipment, the mall sat in a strange, suspended quiet. The crowd that had filled the atrium thinned to employees leaning against banisters, customers clutching shopping bags, and a handful of teenagers whispering in awe. The fluorescent lights buzzed weakly, like they were still deciding whether to stay on after the scare. And in the center of it all stood Mark, with extinguisher dust still clinging to his collar, soot streaking one cheek, and Tyler wrapped around his waist like he wasn't planning to let go for the rest of the night. People stared. Not with suspicion, not with judgment, but with that rare expression you only see when someone realizes the person they overlooked just saved their life. Flynn kept shaking his head, muttering under his breath, "Damn Rivera." Damn, like he was trying to reconcile the quiet guy who fixed vending machines with the man who had just walked into a burning utility room like it was routine. A couple of teenage girls who'd been loitering near the arcade earlier pointed at him with round eyes. That's the guy, one whispered. He went in there. I saw him. He didn't even wait. A cashier from the pretzel shop swiped away tears and whispered something to her coworker. Claire watched all of it from a few feet away, arms crossed but not in her usual defensive posture. Her expression had changed, softer, more exposed, as if the image of Mark stepping into that burning room was replaying behind her eyes on an endless loop. Hal looked like someone had stolen his script. His face was pinched, confused, almost offended that the story unfolding didn't match the one he'd crafted in his head about the problem employee. He cleared his throat loudly, desperate to regain some sense of authority. "All right, folks. Let's not crowd the area. Everyone needs to." No one listened. They were all watching Mark. And that's when the captain from the fire department came back. She approached with her clipboard tucked under one arm. "Rivera," she said, her voice solid. "We pulled the junction box apart. That thing was seconds from going up. If it had reached the line duct overhead, she didn't have to finish." Everyone understood. She turned to Claire next. "Your maintenance guy prevented a full structural fire. North Wing could have collapsed." There was no exaggeration in her tone, no dramatics, just the straightforward truth spoken by someone who'd seen plenty of disasters. Claire nodded, swallowing hard. "Thank you," she said, "for confirming." The captain raised an eyebrow. "Ma'am, I wasn't talking to you." She turned back to Mark. "I meant him. You did damn good work." Then she offered him her hand. And the crowd watched as a former Army medic clasped hands with the woman commanding the biggest fire crew in the county. Even Hal couldn't argue with that. Still, he tried. Well, that's all fine and good," he said, stepping forward with a forced chuckle. "But we still have to address Mr. Rivera's history here. We can't just ignore certain behaviors." "Corporate expects, Hal," Claire said sharply. He froze. "Stop. But stop." Her voice carried through the atrium. Not loud, not angry, just absolute. She turned to Mark. He met her eyes, steady but bracing for whatever came next. "Come with me," she said. Flynn gave him a small nod as Mark handed Tyler gently to the friend's mother, promising he'd be right back. Tyler looked scared to let go, but he did. Claire led Mark through the now emptying mall, past the shuttered storefronts, past the glowing exit signs that flickered weakly, and up the stairs to her office. She didn't speak until the door closed behind them. For a moment, she just stood there, staring at him like she was trying to understand how she had missed something that was now painfully obvious. "You walked into a burning room," she said quietly. "I did what needed doing," he answered. "You could have been killed. So could everyone in that wing." She sat slowly, her expression tightening in a way that wasn't anger, it was realization. Her gaze drifted to the scorch marks on his sleeve, the bruising forming beneath his collar. And then, without warning, she asked, "Who taught you to do that?" He shifted his weight, uncertain. She nodded gently, as if confirming a suspicion. "I saw how you moved," she said. "How calm you were. The way you assessed everything before stepping inside. That wasn't instinct. That was training." He didn't answer. So she leaned forward, elbows on her desk. "Mark, who were you before all this?" The question landed like a soft blow, and he exhaled slowly, letting the air leave him in a long stream like a pressure valve finally opening. "I was a medic," he said quietly. "Army. 2 tours." Claire blinked. He went on, voice low. "I ran toward fires because someone had to. I patched people together in places where we didn't always have electricity, let alone working fire alarms. I learned to move fast, stay calm, make decisions before panic made them for me." He hesitated. "I learned how to save who I could, and carry the weight of who I couldn't." The room seemed to shrink around his words. Claire didn't speak. She didn't interrupt. She just let him talk. "My wife," he said, looking at the floor. "Our apartment building caught fire. Faulty wiring. The alarms didn't go off. I got to my daughter, but not to her." He swallowed hard. "I promised myself I'd never stand still when something was burning again. Not if I could move. Not if I could do something." Claire closed her eyes briefly, not out of discomfort, but out of something closer to grief for how wrongly she'd judged him. When she opened them again, her voice was different. "You weren't playing hero in the parking lot," she said softly. "No," he replied. "I was just trying to keep people breathing." She nodded. Slowly, almost reverently. Then her jaw tightened with something like shame. "I threatened your job," she said. "I told you to stop helping people. I called it a liability." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. The weight of it hovered thick in the air between them. Claire inhaled deeply. "I was wrong." The words weren't an apology, not yet. They were bigger than an apology. They were a recognition. When she spoke again, her tone had shifted again, firmer, now decisive. "There's something else you need to know," she said. "Corporate sent an email earlier. They're concerned about the rumor mill. They want you suspended." Mark's shoulders tensed. But she continued, "They didn't have the new information yet. They didn't know you'd just prevented a disaster that would have shut us down permanently." She picked up her phone. "I'm going to call them, and I'm going to tell them everything they need to hear." She set the phone back down. "But before I do," she said, standing again, "I want to offer you something." He frowned. "Offer me what? A job?" she said. "A new one." She stepped around her desk and faced him directly. "Head of Emergency Response and Community Safety." He blinked. "We don't have a position like that," he said. "We do now." He didn't speak. She kept going. "You saw what no inspector caught. You did what no training manual covers. You saved people not just tonight, but for months. You understand this building better than any of us. And you understand the people outside of it, too." She paused. "And I think it's time we stop pretending this mall only serves shoppers and tenants. It sits in the middle of a community, a struggling one. You've been filling the gaps on your own time. I want to support that, not punish it." He swallowed, stunned. "You want me," he said slowly, "to run a community outreach here and emergency training," she added. "Fire prevention, first aid programs, partnerships with shelters. Everything you've been doing alone, but with funding, with a team, with official backing." He looked away for a moment, overwhelmed. "You don't have to answer now," she said gently. "But if you say yes, everything changes. For you, for us, for this place." He stared at her, caught between disbelief and something that felt dangerously like hope. "Why?" he asked quietly. "Why trust me with all that?" Her answer was simple. "Because when the alarms didn't go off, and the power failed, and the fire started, you were the only one who moved toward the danger. Everyone else froze. I froze. But you didn't." She stepped closer. "And because you see people, even the ones I didn't see at all." Mark breathed slowly, deeply, grounding himself. He thought of Tyler, of the fire he couldn't stop, of the one he had stopped, of the people parked along the fence, of the boy with the cartoon rockets on his backpack. He thought of the truth that had been buried under years of night shifts and exhaustion. He still knew how to fix broken things. He just needed permission. When he looked back up, Claire saw something settle in his expression, something steady, something resolved. She didn't know what his answer would be yet. But she knew one thing. Whatever came next, nothing at Green Line Commons would ever be the same. The next morning, the mall felt different. Not quieter, just clearer, as if the building itself understood something had shifted overnight. Employees stopped what they were doing when Mark walked in beside Claire, not out of curiosity this time, but out of respect. Heads nodded toward him. Eyes softened. People who barely noticed him before now stepped aside like he was someone whose path mattered. Even Flynn, who'd never been much for emotion, clapped a heavy hand on his shoulder and muttered, "Hell of a thing you did, Rivera." Hal arrived last. He carried a folder thick with paperwork, his armor his way of pretending nothing had changed. But as he approached the fire, Captain's words, Claire's stance, and the sideways glances from staff told him the ground had moved under his feet. He opened his mouth to reassert his authority, but Claire cut him off before he got a syllable out. Hal, she said, corporate, reviewed the footage, the reports, and the fire department's findings. They agreed with my recommendation. He blinked. Recommendation for what? Your reassignment, she said simply. They're transferring you to administrative oversight in Columbus, effective immediately. Flynn let out a low whistle. Hal turned red. You're removing me because of him. He jabbed a finger at Mark. No, Claire replied. Because of you, and that was that. Hal sputtered, then stormed off to pack his office. Everyone watched him go. No one stopped him. Claire turned to Mark. You're clear, she said. No suspension, no investigation. And if you're willing, we'll start building the new role today. He didn't answer right away. He looked across the atrium at the service hall, the one where smoke had trickled from the door hours earlier. He remembered the heat, the sparks, the way the world narrows in a crisis, until it's just you and the next breath. Then he looked back at her. I'm willing. She smiled, a real one, not the tight business expression she wore like a second language. Good, she said. Then let's get to work. The first week was messy. Most new ideas are. But something about putting a name to the work Mark had been doing all along, something about having resources, a team, and official backing allowed the concept to take shape faster than anyone expected. They cleared out an unused storefront near the loading dock and turned it into a modest operations center. Flynn volunteered on his off hours to help set up a communications board. A few employees from the food court signed on to organize supply drives. The pretzel shop cashier, who had cried during the fire, helped build a shelving system for first aid kits. Claire walked through the space one afternoon, taking in the buzz of activity, the energy that didn't exist here a month ago. You inspired all this, she said. Mark shook his head. No, people were already ready to help. They just needed someone to start. She didn't argue. She only nodded as if she'd already known that. At home, Tyler stuck drawings to the refrigerator crayon renderings of his dad teaching CPR, handing out blankets, checking smoke detectors in the mall. Kids don't always understand job titles, but they understand heroes. And Tyler carried himself a little taller at school, proud of the name he wrote on every folder. The nights grew calmer around the mall's perimeter. The folks living in their cars knew they weren't trespassers to be chased off anymore. They were neighbors. And twice a week, Mark, now officially on the clock, walked the lot with a small team offering water first aid basics and information on shelters that didn't exist the year before Claire took the reins. Word spread. Volunteers came. A few local businesses donated supplies. What started as a maintenance worker's quiet act of compassion grew into something the city council eventually asked to learn more about. One evening, a month after the fire, Claire stopped by the operations center after hours. Mark was there alone, organizing gear for the next day's training. You do realize, she said gently, that you're building something bigger than any of us expected. He paused. I'm just trying to keep people safe. Yes, she said. And that's the part I didn't understand until the fire. I thought safety was about avoiding risk. But you taught me something else. Safety is about showing up when people need you most. He looked at her, unsure how to respond. She cleared her throat, a rare moment of vulnerability slipping through her usually polished demeanor. I'm glad you stayed, she said. He nodded. I am too. A year later, Green Line Commons had become a different kind of landmark in the area. The mall still had its shops, its food court, its kids' play area. But now, it also had quarterly fire safety classes, a health booth run by local nurses, a weekend meal distribution partnership, and a reputation as a place where the community could breathe easier. The city fire chief stopped by for a ribbon-cutting ceremony and shook Mark's hand publicly, calling him one of the quiet ones who keeps the rest of us alive. The crowd applauded. Tyler cheered loudest. In the corner, Claire watched with her arms folded, pride softening the edges of her usual reserve. When Mark stepped off the makeshift stage, she met him halfway. You ready for the next project? She asked. He smirked. Depends. Does it involve running into another burning building? Hopefully not, she said. But if it ever does, at least now we know who to follow. He felt a warmth settle in his chest. Not the kind that comes from adrenaline or fear, but the kind that comes from belonging. Purpose. A sense that the weight he carried all those years had finally found a place to land besides his shoulders. As the community milled around them, chatting, sharing food, snapping photos, Mark watched Tyler laugh with some friends near a display board labeled Safety Heroes. His picture was pinned in the top corner, smiling, holding a fire extinguisher that was almost too big for him. Mark breathed deeply. This time the air was clean. And in that simple breath he understood something he'd never fully let himself believe. Sometimes the past doesn't define you. Sometimes it equips you. Sometimes what breaks you also builds you into exactly the person someone else needs. And sometimes on a good day, in a quiet corner of a mall that almost burned, you get to see the proof of it with your own eyes.